Hey there, this is Natalie. Now, while I do have a video in the works analysing the new ReZero Season 2 OP, on this particularly hot summer night, the mood has struck me to make another late night radio style video where we can relax and take a look at another interesting ReZero mystery and my half-baked late night theory about what the answer might be. So, as before when I've made videos talking in my cheesy late night radio host voice, I want to invite you to enjoy the grooviest, royalty-free lounge music while I take you through until the morning, or more realistically 10 or so minutes from now, with some super smooth ReZero stuff. This video will contain lore and mentions of characters from beyond where the anime has reached or will reach in Season 2, but I won't spoil any major events or plot points, so if you're anime only, you should still be able to follow what I'm talking about. Though if you're trying to avoid any information at all about ReZero content that hasn't been included in the anime, this is where we should say goodbye for this particular video. But if you're happy to stick around, let's get into tonight's laid-back ReZero topic. What is the meaning of the Witch of Envy's name? So, to begin with, I'd like to clue you sweet listeners in on why this is an interesting matter, if you weren't already aware. As is so often the case when we're dealing with ReZero's many mysteries, it all comes down to the hints the author Tappei Nagatsuki likes to sometimes throw to us, like bones thrown to little dogs. And like little dogs, we need to decide which of these bones are juicy enough to bury in the garden where the wild theories grow, and which ones we should simply piss on and walk away. I forgot where I was going with that analogy at some point. While we learn the name of the Witch of Envy, SATELLA, before we even learn the name of the beautiful heroine Subaru meets in episode 1, according to the author, the meaning of this cool witch's name will not be revealed until the final arc. There are 11 arcs planned for ReZero, with the web novel, which is Tappei's first draft of the story, and therefore always the furthest ahead, currently on arc 6, and the anime covering arc 4 in the currently airing second season. Getting an answer to this mystery is definitely a long way off. But if there's a meaning to be revealed, and it's going to come out that close to the end, we can assume that this name carries some real significance in this story. That means it's not just an arbitrarily chosen name that sounded good to the author, but also that it doesn't have an obvious meaning that we, or in world Subaru, would instantly understand. Unlike, say, the Sin Archbishops, who Subaru figures out early on all have names used for stars in our world. Now, before I go into what the most popular theories about the name SATELLA are, I'd just like to clarify a point about this topic. I won't go into the specifics to avoid spoilers, but the name SATELLA and the term the Witch of Envy are not actually interchangeable. This will be explained later in Season 2, and if you've read ahead, you hopefully understand what I mean anyway. But the point is that while I'm aware that these terms do not necessarily refer to the exact same smooth character, for the purposes of this discussion about what the name SATELLA could mean, I'm going to be treating them as if they do. This is partly because it's easier to avoid important spoilers that way, and also because, barring any potential twists about SATELLA and the Witch of Envy that I think would be outside of the scope of this late night video to speculate about, I think we can take the position that the distinction isn't important when talking about how and why she got the name SATELLA. So then, what do we know, and what are some possibilities? So listeners, naturally I wouldn't lead you down this rabbit hole tonight without first doing the most obvious checks, and seeing if SATELLA means anything particular as a name, with no modifications made to it. Now, while looking up SATELLA does bring up some "what does your name mean" type sites, which claim to tell you what the name means, these really give some horoscope-style descriptions rather than a meaning based on the cultural origin or etymology of the name. That is to say, while there probably are people in the world named SATELLA, it isn't a name with any historical or linguistic origins. Names can be anything after all. A good example being the name Wendy, a name which there are no prior records of anybody being called before the book Peter Pan, where it was made up as some kind of twee, childlike thing based on, apparently, and apologies for saying this, Friendy Wendy, but which is now considered a normal name in English-speaking countries, and in fairy tale, where it's the name of the second worst character, the first being Wendy's cat. These definitions for SATELLA could even have been created after ReZero was written, meaning Tappei truly made up the name. Or it could just be that it's the kind of thing that sounds like a nice name for a girl, with the Ella at the end, and the fact it rhymes with Nutella. So some people are named it, but their parents made it up. Either way, thinking of SATELLA as an existing name isn't getting us close to any answers tonight. But what about thinking of it as a word? Considering languages we have evidence of Tappei drawing on in his naming, well, structurally, the double L and the vowel ending makes it look most like an Italian word. And there are characters with Italian names in ReZero, Emilia being a clear example. But it isn't an Italian word. I don't speak perfect Italian, but I do live in Italy, and I ran this by someone who does, as well as, of course, Googling it in Italian. And no, not only does SATELLA have no meaning in Italian, it has no meaning in Latin either. So this is a blank too, listeners. Though this isn't the last we'll be considering Latin or Italian in this video. With no meaning to be found for SATELLA, we have to consider that the name of this character may have been modified. There is a precedent for this. Betelgeuse, spelt with a P, has been confirmed as being an intentional change to the spelling of the star name Betelgeuse. While some people may well have thought this was just an error in the subtitling, Subaru actually comments on the spelling in Arc 5, stating that it was why it took him longer to figure out that the archbishops shared the names with stars from his world than it otherwise would have. We don't know why his name is spelled this way, and we also don't know if it always was. He is referred to as Juice for short by everyone who knew him before he became Sloth, and this may well be intentional to keep that detail unclear until such time as Tappei wants to reveal more about the matter. Aside from changing a name for in-world reasons, there's also the possibility that the name should have been something else, but had some letters added to make it pronounceable in Japanese, much like Echidna has the additional O in it when written sometimes. I think we can consider that to be ruled out, however. There are lots of characters with foreign names whose names can't be made with the sounds of the Japanese language without adding in additional vowels. Wilhelm, Reinhard and Beatrice, to name but a few. But in official translations, they're standardized to what was intended, where unofficial translators had no access to the author or producers to check and had to make their best guess. But in every translation, SATELLA is always SATELLA. And so, the main theories around SATELLA's meaning stem from it being a word adapted for in-world reasons from one of two possible roots. The name SATELLA sounds most like it could have been adapted from STELLA. If you're from the UK, like me, which according to my YouTube stats you probably aren't, then you'll probably associate the name STELLA with strong continental fighting lager. But the name's origin is Italian, and its meaning is simply star. Stars are certainly important in ReZero, as we know from all of the characters with star names, which include all of the current witch cult members, Subaru, the other isekai character Aldebaran, and other characters I won't talk about too much here due to spoilers, such as Shaola. Stars are also used a lot in metaphors related to Subaru in Tappei's writing. For instance, in Subaru's Trial of the Past in Arc 4, which at the time of writing is just about to be aired in episode 4 of season 2, Subaru's feelings about himself and his life are described in the web novel in terms of a starry sky, with stars going out or shining brightly at different points in the analogy. Arc 5 is in itself titled Stars That Engrave History, or various other similar translations, and it's here that Subaru begins to notice the star names around him in this new world where those stars shouldn't be known by the same names. We know from the Memory Snow OVA that stars and constellations in the ReZero world do not have the same names as in our world, as you would expect, and so these names are very mysterious and probably tie into both the connection between our world and ReZero's and the connection between Subaru himself and the ReZero world. All things we can only theorize about at the moment, and which I have in some of my other videos. It would make sense then that SATELLA, who could even be the most important character in the story, the one who summoned Subaru and gave him his return by death ability, the one who loves him for reasons he doesn't know, the one who the witch cult thinks they worship and want to revive, and the one the people of this world fear above all else. Well, rather than being a star, like those who follow her, she's the star. Her name, Stella. But let's say this theory is correct, and her name is simply the Italian word for star, mutated into the new name SATELLA for whatever reason Betelgeuse is Petaljuice with a P. Is there anything else that this could tie into? Well, I'm glad you asked, my sweet, sweet hypothetical listener, because yes, there is something else here. Stella is an Italian name, and the only other characters we know of so far that Tappei used Italian names for are Emilia and Emilia's aunt Fortuna. Emilia, who looks just like SATELLA and even has the same voice actress in the anime, and her blood-related aunt, her father's sister, who's an elf. It is understood from interviews with Tappei that Emilia's name was one of the first things he decided on for his story, and that he simply liked the name and wanted to use it for a beautiful white-haired heroine. But it's likely that he did look it up and consider its origins when deciding on names for other characters, given that, like many writers, including me, he tends to use names from different cultures to give a sense of cohesion to different families and cultures in the story, such as the Van Astrea line all having fairly Germanic names, and again, in this case it's said that he chose Reinhard's name early, wanting to name him after a character from Legend of the Galactic Heroes, so he presumably chose names for those related to him based on what would sound coherent with the name Reinhard. I have said in a previous theory video that I think it's possible that these European names from our world may have made their way into the ReZero world from isekai people from places other than Japan. Much like I think it's possible the European architecture in Lagunica was also brought over from our world, and Subaru and we just don't consider this, because isekai fantasy worlds always look vaguely European, so he only notices when things look Japanese, like things from Kararagi, which were indeed brought over by an isekai person known as Hoshin of the Wastes. But that's just my strange theory, so we'll assume that's not the case, and the names of Emilia and Fortuna aren't Italian because they're descended from an isekai Italian person, but just because Tappei chose names that sounded like they went with Emilia. Either way, it does gel that SATELLA, who's definitely connected to Emilia in some way, would have a name that fits with Emilia's family, an Italian name, like Stella. The final thing that could contribute to Stella being the correct answer is that Typhon, the Witch of Pride, calls all of the other witches by cute nicknames, and her nickname for SATELLA is indeed Stella. If anything, the main thing going against Stella as being the answer is that it seems a bit too easy. Though of course, when Tappei says the meaning won't be revealed until the final arc, that could really mean something other than just what the literal meaning of a word used for her name is. If the meaning is star, the revelation wouldn't be that, but why it's star, and what importance that has in the endgame revelations of ReZero. But there's another possibility that's also worth considering. The other most popular theory about SATELLA as a name is that it's adapted from the English word satellite, or any of the other Latin-based language equivalents, all derived from the Latin SATELLA'S. Now, satellite, as it's generally used now, means an astronomical body, either natural or artificial, that orbits something. We have artificial satellites, of course, orbiting the Earth, and these are the things we usually use the word for, but the moon is also a satellite of the Earth. This meaning of the word ties in not so much to the witch cult or the characters with star names, but instead to the other witches. The witches share their names with mythological beings, though this isn't the pattern with them, as they are inconsistent in that respect, with most of them being Greek, but Minerva being Roman in origin. Instead, they're supposed to be named after bodies in the asteroid belt, which, of course, like a lot of stars and planets and so on, were named after things from various myths. Of the 6 original witches other than SATELLA, I'm not including Hector and Pandora here as they sit outside of this group and we don't know their relationship with SATELLA. All are asteroids, except for Echidna, which is a moon of the asteroid Typhon is named after. Echidna then is the only one who's a satellite. She's also, in a sense, the odd one out of the other witches in other ways too, and so the impression is that of the 7 witches of sin, the ones who are most important and who don't quite fit with the others are SATELLA and Echidna, the 2 satellites perhaps. Echidna is also the only witch who hates SATELLA, though we don't know the story behind that yet. But if we put aside the astronomical meaning of satellite and look at the Latin and why it came to be used in this way in astronomy, the Latin SATELLA'S means someone who follows or escorts a more important person. It's easy to see why such a word came to be used for a moon orbiting a planet. But what could this mean in terms of SATELLA? Orbiting a more important person certainly sounds fitting for one associated with envy, but who could be more important than SATELLA? The author has confirmed that the strongest people in the world of ReZero are SATELLA and Reinhardt, and that neither could kill the other in a straight fight, with it leading to an endless stalemate should it happen. But Reinhardt is an anomaly, even among his own line of sword saints, because of all of his divine protections. The sword saint of SATELLA'S time, Reed Estrella, was indeed very strong, but still needed the help of the dragon and the sage to seal SATELLA. In SATELLA'S time, she was easily the strongest person in existence. She went on to become the most feared person in history, and the cause of the most significant event that ever happened to the world, the Great Calamity. So who could be more important? It would seem that if we follow this possibility to its logical conclusion, the answer would be Subaru, the person SATELLA loves. But of course, we won't know why Subaru is so important, or why she loves him anytime soon. And perhaps, listeners, that's what it means to say that we will find out the meaning of her name in the final arc. These 2 are the only theories that I can think of or find from other people related to SATELLA'S name. However, there is also the possibility that whatever the name means has nothing to do with an existing word from our world, and could refer to something from the ReZero world that we just don't know about yet. She could, say, have taken the name from a smooth, legendary great spirit that hasn't been mentioned yet, or the name of a type of magic long forgotten by the world, or something like that, which will have a meaning in universe and serve as an important revelation when it comes, but which we can't guess at until it starts to appear in the story. Perhaps this is the correct answer, and Tappei just decided to mislead us down the path of theorizing by choosing his completely fictional word to sound like it was connected to things thematically relevant to ReZero, like stars and moons. What do you think? Personally, I think the STELLA theory is the most persuasive at the moment, but I'm not entirely convinced by it either, or at least I think if it is the answer, there's going to be a lot more to it. Let me know in the comments what you think, especially if you have any different ideas that I haven't talked about here. I hope you enjoyed this smooth late night radio style theory video. While it's hot, I'm recording all of my audio in the middle of the night, and so talking like this somehow feels right. Please give the video a like if you enjoyed it, and please subscribe if you want to see more ReZero content. I've got plenty of stuff in the works, including reviews of each new episode, theories, analysis, and some weirder random ReZero stuff. I'm a pretty new channel and I'm chasing the modest milestone of 200 subscribers right now, so any support really means a lot to me. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a relaxing rest of the night.